This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Les McCurdy has a rather unique business, a comedy club. He has kept it going for more than 35 years, McCurdy's Comedy Club in downtown Sarasota. That's a significant feat anywhere, but even more impressive in a smaller market. To read more about successful entrepreneurs like Les McCurdy and how they do it, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Les McCurdy of McCurdy's Comedy Club in Sarasota. Les, welcome and thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Happy to start talking to you. I've thought for years about taking your class at McCurdy's.
You need to quit thinking about it.
I just do it?
Correct.
All right. I tell my 16-year-old son that I'm the funniest person he's ever met. I think he thought that when he was like 3. I don't think he thinks that anymore.
He'll be impressed.
All right. I like it.
You know
awesome.
How you do it? You know how you do it? People that tell me what you just told me, I go,
yeah.
You pay for it. Just pay for it. And then sign up. You know, you'll have 3 or 4 months already with dates. And sign up for one of them.
Right.
Then you're committed. Dollars are in. You can always change and go, oh, that session's not going to work for me. Do it whenever you want to. You're already paid. But it's like that's the commitment. Then you're okay. By God, I'm going, you know.
All right. I'm doing it. I'm going to do it.
Good.
All right. We're going to get going. Okay. 3 rapid fire questions to start. Les, who is the one comedian that you would pay to see perform live, dead or alive? Any comedian ever in the history of the world that you would pay right now to see live?
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. Awesome. Richard Pryor's a great answer.
He changed comedy. He was
amazing.
He was the pivotal point that changed comedy from what it was, which was, you know, what we watched as kids on the Tonight Show, and the comics were Buddy Hackett and Don Rickles and Joan Rivers and that group that you know had a certain there was just a certain censorship to, you know, what you presented to the general public, even though in live shows a lot of those comics were just as wild as Richard was. But Richard set this tone for not just jokes. A joke pace, the same pace as one-liners, but evolving into a story that comes from, you know, his background and totally raw. No filter. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, on the same sort of similar theme, is there an all-time, or what is your all-time favorite comedy movie? A movie that if it's on the TV, you're going to drop the remote and you're like, I'm watching the rest of this movie. Is there a favorite all-time funny movie?
There's probably several, but I will say that when I think of a movie that I will watch over and over again, at least a few of the Will Ferrell movies. He just particularly always makes me laugh, whatever it is. I just love his demeanor, just the way he approaches his characters. So whether it's Talladega Nights or The Newsman or, you know, one of several, I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 that I would watch over and over again with him.
Awesome. All right, last rapid fire question. You have 10 seconds. Let's say you're on a receiving line. You're meeting the Pope. You're meeting the King of England. You're meeting the President of the United States. You got 10 seconds to tell a joke. What joke are you going to tell?
Well, it depends on if they know I'm a comic and go, we know you're a comedian, tell us a joke. My standard answer is, you're a good-looking guy. You look like you went to college. It's my standard joke.
It's good. That's a good one. I like it. I think our audience could pick up on that. We're going to move into a bit of your career. Tell us about growing up and where you grew up and kind of how you got into this business. I think you were a stand-up first before opening McCurdy's, but tell us about your childhood and how you kind of got into this business.
Well, it wasn't in my childhood. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and there was never a thought of being any kind of entertainer when I grew up because we didn't know an entertainer. We didn't know anybody that knew anybody that was an entertainer. It was so far-fetched from how I grew up. There was no connection to it. I wanted to be a forest ranger. I wanted to be exactly the opposite of what I am. I saw myself living in the middle of a national park, maybe by myself, taking care of a chunk of the park and being very happy with that. And now I'm, like I say, the total opposite. It was when I went to Memphis State, which is now University of Memphis, and gradually dropped out because I had no purpose for being there. In the 70s, started working in nightclubs in Memphis. The music scene there was incredible. I was working at a place that was next door to Lafayette's Music Room, where I could walk in for free anytime and see acts like Kiss, Billy Joel, Melissa Manchester, Linda Ronstadt, Leon Russell, B.B. King, Albert King. I mean, it just and I was around them, and I was 19, 20, 21, and I was actually getting to hang out with some of these people, with a big group, and I realized, man, these people aren't magic. They're not angels sent from heaven. They're not that different from me. That what they are is that they're talented, but they've worked their ass off at whatever that is to get to this level. And so something kind of clicked in me that, hey, maybe that's achievable for me somehow. But I played the harmonica. That's about it. But I ended up, without going into this whole story, floating into the theater department at University of Memphis through a few other things that happened in my life and trying acting. And I just loved it from the very beginning. And after taking a few classes, I went and requested to be in the Bachelor of Fine Arts program, theater performance, and I did that and completed that program. And then I left in 1981 to go to Los Angeles. I had a truck with a camper top on the back because I figured I'd probably be living out of it. And I was going to LA. I'd met a few people through theater that were out there that said that they could give me some help, some guidance. And, I was young and just like, what the hell? Let's go give it a shot. I thought that I could be a good character actor, a good sidekick kind of person, and so a buddy of mine, Ken Sons, my best friend, was living in Boulder, Colorado, working in education, and he had done some documentary films and had cameras. And so I decided to stop and hang out with him for about 6 months to play with cameras because I'd never worked in front of a camera. And there was a comedy club in Denver. And at that time, there was probably only a couple of dozen comedy clubs in the country, if that. And we started going down there and watching, and then we decided to go up on open mic night and give it a try, which was basically like we kept procrastinating and not doing it. And finally, I walked over to a wall calendar we had. It was on Monday nights, and I went 2 weeks out, and I marked that Monday, and I go, that Monday, we are going up. I'm going to schedule us. We are going up, and if we stand there, we got 5 minutes. If we stand there and stare at the audience for 5 minutes and never say a frickin' word, we're going on that damn stage. Do or die. And so we did. Roseanne was in the back room with us with the open micers. She was one of them.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing.
And we'd seen her already on open mic nights going down and watching it, and she was always one of the better ones. And so we started doing open mic night, and and then we started going in on other nights to see the headliners. And after every show, we would go and try to talk to the headliner. And we usually we found that if we offered to buy them alcohol, that would catch their ear for at least a beer. And then we'd always go, hey man, if you don't have a car, whatever, we'll take you out to a couple bars, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes we get one of the guys that would do it. And we would just pick their brain. How'd you get into this, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't thinking of it as a career. I was thinking, man, if I could learn to do this and there's work out there, especially in LA, I knew there was a few comedy clubs there. Maybe I could do this in between acting jobs instead of waiting tables or bartending or some bullshit. And one of the comics that we hung out with, a guy named Adam Leslie from New York, he said, you know what, guys? There's clubs opening all over the country. It's phenomenal. There's just an explosion of clubs. And they're opening up in the Southeast. He goes, there's one in Atlanta, Birmingham, Charlotte, Nashville. There's a few scattered around in Florida. He said, if I were you, I would go back where you're from and get really good there. Become one of the better comics in the Southeast. Then take your shot at Los Angeles or New York. And so we took his advice and we came back, and sure enough, there were three clubs that had opened. There were three clubs that had opened in the Tampa Bay area, all by the same guy. Tampa near Busch Gardens, Tierra Verde there in St. Pete, and one in Sarasota. And we moved to Tampa. And we felt like, hey, what the hell? That's three open mic nights we can go to, and you're in Florida. What's wrong with that? And so that's how we got started. And me and a guy named Ken Sons, my buddy, we started as a comedy team. And between 1981, we came here in 82, that couple of dozen comedy clubs blossomed by 86 or 87, in about 5 years, into about 200 comedy clubs. So we were in the beginning of an emerging art form that we could figure out. And so if you could just hold your own on stage for 20, 25 minutes and be professional, you could get work as an MC, as an opening act, making $400 to $500 and accommodations. And that was better than any of my friends in New York were doing with acting, with plays. I think union minimum back then, if you had a couple of lines, was only $350 or something like that. So we just kind of stuck with it. And then it was just a domino effect. We were in the right place at the right time. Work was abundant. We got better and better at it, and, just kept doing it. And then in 80, and I met my wife, Pam, down here, who, when we were down here, she was going to the Oslo, the Florida State's master's degree program for theater. And when she graduated, she went in 84. She went to New York, and that's when we started touring. Quit our jobs. We were 100% on tour. And then in 86, couple of years, about 2.5 years after that, I got booked in New York at a club on Long Island. Hadn't seen Pam or had any contact with her in probably 9 months or more. We hooked back up, realized that we truly loved each other and we wanted to be together, and gradually got back together. And we were going to move to LA, but the more we talked about LA, the more we realized we didn't like LA. So we were only going there for fame and fortune, truly. There was no other reason to go to LA. We would never pick that as a place to live for quality of life. And closer we got to going, the more we were dreading it. And I asked her one day, I said, let me pose this just as a hypothetical. We go and it works. And we know you got to be dedicated to put at least 10 years minimum into this process. And it works. And today, one of us is going to go in some studio head's office and we're going to sign a contract that says basically go buy a house pretty much wherever you want. I asked Pam, I go, where's our house? And she said, Siesta Key. And I said, really? I said, not Beverly Hills, not Malibu, not one of the other posh areas. She goes, no, we don't want to live out there. We'll keep a condo out there when we're working. We want to live on Siesta Key. I said, or near it. I said, well, here's the other question. Do you have to have the 10,000 square foot house with the 2 Bentleys? Or could you take a 2,000 square foot house with 2 Toyotas and live there forever? And Pam went, I'd be happy with that. I said, I think I would be too. And Sarasota, there was always a little comedy club down here for years, but it turned into a real funky little room at a Ramada Inn. So it wasn't good. And so we decided, let's go down there, spend our first year as a true honeymoon, and I'll cut my touring back to no more than 10 days a month. You get a day job. We'll see if we can find a little side room in a hotel, a banquet room, something where we can do comedy a little bit. And we'll see if we can make Sarasota work. If it doesn't, then we'll move out to LA. And we found a banquet room in the Holiday Inn Airport Marina that they weren't using much. And they gave it to us for 6 months, and we were there for 10 years. And you know, then that eventually ended, and we opened up our own place in 2001. We had $150,000 saved up. We spent all of that. We borrowed $250,000 on a small business administration loan. I was scared shitless. If it doesn't work, you're bankrupt. That's that. And 2 weeks before our opening night, the planes hit the Twin Towers. And we sat in the middle of our almost completed comedy club and discussed how we were going to deal with the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Because we felt like, who's coming to a comedy club now? You know, we might be at war. Who knows?
Right.
And we opened 2 weeks later, and 1,200 people came out that week for comedy.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
And what we realized was how much the people needed it right now. And then 3 weeks later, David Brenner, who was a super famous act, my dad's age, came in as the grand opening, sold out 6 shows, and we were off to the races. And we haven't slowed down since. It just seems to get a little better every year. So there you go. And we're living in paradise. We're living exactly where we want to live. You know, we were out in L.A. a few years ago for my brother-in-law's retirement. And first time we'd been to L.A. where we were successful enough that we could stay anywhere we wanted to stay. We could go and do whatever the hell we wanted to do. You know, we didn't have to deal with the traffic. We could have a car come get us, you know, do whatever. And we did. And we had a ball. And a friend of mine's the costume designer at one of the main theaters there. And we went over and hung out with her. And she's very successful in that in L.A. And we just, after we got through, I said, Pam, it's so obvious to me if we had to come out here instead of going to Sarasota. And it worked. And it worked. And everything worked, and we had a great career, and we lived well, and we're very successful. Would we have had a better quality of life than we do having moved to Sarasota? And it was obvious that we wouldn't have had. The only thing would have been is that maybe we'd have been a little more, that we would have been more famous, but I don't know that that makes for a better quality of life, you know? So yeah, that was our path, and it's been just joyful the whole way.
Well, amazing, and obviously you're in your location now downtown. So one of the things we talk about on this podcast is leadership and kind of how leaders do different things and be better in their career. I'm wondering about rejection or mistakes. And one thing that stands out to me in comedy is not everybody's going to laugh at every joke, right? I mean, how have you dealt with have you bombed a show? Or
everybody bombs. Everybody has bad shows. I mean, I could have a bad show now. Less likely, but I could,
How do you overcome that? How do you react and sort of...
Well, you have more good shows than bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you just create a body of work that let's put it this way. If you're out there, and you work your way into being a pro, getting paid anything, and you don't make any money in this business until you get to headliner, and that takes the average person 7 to 10 years. And, if along that way, you're having more bad shows than good, I mean, if you're even having 25% bad shows, lackluster, you're not going to last as a pro. You're not going to get hired back. You can't go into a club for a week and do 6 to 8 shows and have one bad one. Okay, anybody can see that. 2 bad ones, the club owner's already going, 3 bad ones, you ain't coming back. You're not coming back. So the thing is, if you're good enough to be a pro, you're having 75% minimum good shows. So the occasional time you have a bad show, I don't blame it on the crowd. I go, I just didn't have the right kind of material for this crowd, type of thing. And so that's just the way you go. It's always a learning process. You always, I guarantee you, after that Super Bowl last night, Mahomes is going to do more soul searching than he's ever done in his whole life, and he'll come out a better athlete because of it. But and that's the same way with us. And I'll tell you another thing too. There's 2 kinds of comedians, in my opinion. There's celebrities that are brandable, and there's crowd pleasers. I'm a crowd pleaser. That means I'm going to get in front of a crowd. I'm going to throw my first 10 minutes out there. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to read the crowd. And as I read the crowd, I'm going to make a decision how I'm going to go with the rest of my set. And I'll adapt. I'll adapt to them. A celebrity does not do that. If you're going to be a celebrity and be trademarked, you have to live and die by that show, that kind of show. Seinfeld is not doing anything different than what Jerry does. In the same way, Larry the Cable Guy is not doing any different than what Larry the Cable Guy does. If the crowd doesn't like it, then you're just going to eat it for 45 minutes to an hour. And you are, but you're not coming off of it. You're trying to find your people. You're thinking, I'm having a bad show. I'm not connecting with this audience, but maybe out of the 200 or 300 that are here, I'm connecting with 30. Those are my people. I'm just getting my people.
Going for those.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, that's really how it works. The biggest thing that was hard was when we opened the first comedy club we all opened was in our hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we put on great shows, but we didn't know how to run a business, and we failed miserably. And we were really lucky that the 5 of us invested in it didn't lose a big chunk of money, but we ended up selling it and in a way that nobody lost much. But we didn't know, business-wise, we didn't know what we were doing. We knew how to put good shows on, but we didn't know how to run the back end of the business, and we got killed.
What are some of the things you've learned about running a business since then? What are some things that stick out to
Inventory
you?
control.
Inventory
control. You
Big
better
lesson.
know where every ounce of booze goes, where every chicken finger ends up. You better know how to make sure that your servers are being efficient, because in a comedy club, you are making all of your money, even with 7, 8 shows, in no more than 20 hours, all of it. So you got to be on point, and everybody's got to be efficient. And I'll tell you the story on this. When we first decided to open up our first full-blown room across from Ringling School of Art and Design in that old dilapidated strip mall we were in, we were developing everything, putting a business plan together. And I told Pam, I go, look, here's the thing. I'm not a bean counter. I'm not fine motor. I'm not that person, that's going to watch every little thing. And we already know somebody's got to do that, or you're not making it. The money will go right out the back door. And I said, also, somebody has to be the designated asshole. Somebody's got to be the person that when they walk in the room, everybody sits up straighter. That's not me either. And Pam goes, I'll handle that. I got that. She had no business degree. She had a master's degree in theater. Now, magna cum laude, she went on a full ride scholarship. She's brilliant, super smart. And so the first 2 weeks we were open, we came home one night and she goes, I do not have a handle on this. I do not. And I said, okay. I said, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call 2 of my buddies that live up in Tampa that own bars, and I'm going to get them to help you. And I called one guy and he was like, no problem, man. He's like, I'll be down there and I'll walk Pam through it and I'll come down as many times as I need to. I'll get her together. And then we're going to call a staff meeting and we're going to accuse our staff of stealing. And I'm going to be, they've never seen me mad, and they're going to see me really upset, and that somebody stealing and da. I said, that'll keep them from stealing for a couple of weeks until we get our shit together. And
lead with fear. I like it.
And so after a couple of weeks, Pam was like, I got it. I said, okay, good. If anything, whatever, you just let me know. And so about a month later, I was leaving last, the only one in the building, and I thought to myself, shit, I don't have any beer at home. I'll stop at 7-Eleven, get some beer. And then I thought, you got a walk-in cooler full of beer, you dumbass. It's yours. It's actually your beer. I went, oh, okay. So I went in there, and instead of grabbing a 6-pack, I just pulled 4 Corona out of the case. I usually will write it down and stick it on the desk, but I didn't, because I said, I'll just tell Pam when I got home. When I got home, she was already asleep. Next morning, I didn't think about it, whatever. Week goes by, and she always reconciles on Mondays. So I said, the next Monday, I go, how's everything going? She goes, everything's going great. We made this percentage on the food. We made this percentage on the liquor, blah, 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 blah. But there's 4 Corona missing. And I said, I love you more than I have ever loved you in my entire life. And I mean, she's gorgeous, but whew, that was hot.
Yeah.
that was hot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that's it, man. I mean, you gotta, that's what kills businesses. They just think, that you don't have to be able to. Another comedy club owner, when we were getting going, he goes, your servers will slack off at the end of every show because they've already been by the table several times. People
are pretty much done.
So they'll slack off that last 20 minutes and they'll get their checks ready and whatever. And he said, that's when you got to be on them to make them go back out to those tables again Even if they say, I've already been out there, nobody wants, I go, I want you to go back and check on everybody again. Bust the table, double check. He goes, now listen, you got a room of 200 to 250 people. Say, because you got them to do that, you only got 10 drink sales, just 10 every show. He goes, multiply that times every show for a year right now and tell me what that number is. And we did. And Pam goes, that's how much I'd like to make this year. He goes, exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's the little shit that will, you know, be the difference in whether a business, especially an F&B business, makes it or not.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So we're here in mid-February. Les, what's coming up at McCurdy's Comedy Club? What do you got that's hot in Sarasota? What's coming up the rest of the
freaking week? I am so amazed. I turned over the booking to my assistant Bronwyn, all book. I'd been gradually doing it. This year I turned all booking over here. So now I go look at the calendar and I'm like, wow, look who's coming. You know, whoa, that's crazy. But I mean, you know, we got tomorrow night and Wednesday, Louis C.K. Of course, completely sold out. In a heartbeat, he sells out. He added a show the other day. We sold 150 tickets in 4 minutes, you know. So, you know, I mean, he's huge. But anyway, Louis C.K., then Lynn Koplitz, who will be opening for Louis, who's in a lot of his movies and television and stuff. She's headlines for us. Then Yakov Smirnoff, of course, old school, but brilliantly funny, was back in the Eddie Murphy days and that stuff, you know. Then coming up in March, we've got, I love this, 3 Boston guys in a row. Orny Adams, then Bob Marley, then Jim McHugh. All of them killer comedians, you know. We have Kevin Nealon coming back to us in a few months. We've got 4 or 5. I know one new comic that's coming in, and I can't pronounce his last name. I didn't know him, but he was one of the newer members on Saturday Night Live just a couple of years ago, who's really developed. So, I mean, it's just, I looked at the schedule. There's not a weak link in the chain all the way through, and it's just a matter of what, you know, the style you like as far as that goes, you know. And then our Music Mondays are going to be fun. I mean, the next Music Monday coming up on the 31st, you've got G.E. Smith, who was the band leader for Saturday Night Live.
SNL guy,
Yeah, for many, many years. And the other is Jimmy Vivino. Jimmy was the band leader and had the band for Conan O'Brien for many, many years. And they're going to be together, which is going to be really cool, you know. So we got some cool stuff coming up. And the thing I urge people is you need to be getting our email newsletter, because 2 things happen with that if you don't do it. One, when these acts like, and of course, Larry the Cable Guy's coming in March the 9th, and the only reason he's playing our club, he's playing no clubs, but he's playing our club because it's where he started. First time he ever did Larry was per my request. He was doing it on the radio. He didn't have it in his act, and it had gotten real popular on the radio. And I mentioned to him, I said, hey, man, you ever thought about doing that character in your show? He goes, no. And I go, well, you ought to. I said, I think I can sell some tickets to Larry the Cable Guy. We can't sell any Dan Whitney tickets, you know? And so he called me and he said, look, I'm doing my last special in April. And I thought, what better thing to do than come to where it all started and do a couple of shows for the fun of it, you know, just to kind of, you know, tribute or whatever. But the thing is, the people that get those tickets are the people that are on our email newsletter, because by the time that word gets out to the general public, they're gone. So we get John Popper that you saw from Music, same thing. I mean, it's like every once in a while we get those kind of acts in, and we're one of the maybe 15 or 20 clubs in the whole country that get those acts. And when we do, you got to be on point to get those tickets, and and plus, you get put in your birthday and that kind of crap, and you get calls for free tickets on offshoot weekdays and stuff. What the hell, So yeah, it's a good thing.
Awesome. Well, Les McCurdy, McCurdy's Comedy Club in downtown Sarasota. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to going into year 39.
Year 39.
39.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's too much. Hard to believe. But, all good. But we love the Observer. I'm glad you guys are around, man. We need the local. I just say anything to anybody, support your local papers. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Whether it's,
and your local comedy clubs.
Yes, absolutely. They're very much needed in the community.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing if you don't have them. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Les. Good chat with you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.